6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio. Live from the heart of the downtown east side, it's Talk Recovery Radio with Giuseppe Gazzi and Darren Gaylor on Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. From the streets to the studio, bringing you addiction recovery stories from real people with lived experience and real experts on today's issues. Tune in live every Thursday, noon to 1, powered by New West Recovery. Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio.
And good afternoon, Vancouver. I'm with Mr. Darren Gaylor. Hey, Darren. Good afternoon.
Hello. How's it going?
I'm pretty good. We're both feeling a little under the weather, but we've got more than a mask. We've got TV screens and video screens in between us. Welcome to Talk Recovery Radio. This is Giuseppe Ganci and Darren Gaylor coming to you on Thursdays, bringing you addiction recovery stories. 9 years, hundreds of guests, thousands of listeners. These are the Restream devices you can listen to us on. Thanks to Co-op Radio for broadcasting us live. And wherever you listen to your music, you can hear Talk Recovery Radio, from iTunes to podcast to Spotify. So go to our website and, lots and lots of shows there for you. Darren, let me tell you. So we like to show off with some conversations about what's going on. So I just got out of this meeting with city councilors and police and fire and all due respect to everybody in the meeting, and it was about decriminalization in the city of New West. So there's these things called CAT groups. They're community action teams, and they're great organizations. We've been on the CAT team for New West for a long time. But a lot of people say, oh, last doors against consumption sites. Well, we were on the committee that brought a consumption site to New Westminster. Purpose Society fully support it. So anyway, today's topic was decrim, and I don't want to take on too much time because we want to get into our guests, but this is pretty important, especially for you too. So the conversation was, for those of you that don't live in British Columbia, British Columbia has decriminalized drugs. It's kind of a model like the Portuguese model, but it's nowhere close. The Portuguese model, they decriminalize drugs, you do drugs, you get sent to a commission of drug dissuasion if there's like social disorder while you're using drugs, to help you towards a path of wellness, not like abstinence, just a path to wellness. So things like what I'm about to talk about don't happen. And so they created this decrim in British Columbia without any of the follow-up. There's no referral process. Like there's no system in place to help people towards wellness. That is a provincial system, all right? Like not like Portugal did. So that's the Portuguese model. So today's topic in this meeting was there's a loophole in regards to using drugs in playgrounds. And I'm not saying since decrim everyone's using drugs in playgrounds, but there's been a couple of complaints by parents by people using drugs in playgrounds. And there's nothing you can do because it's not illegal to use heroin in a playground. And so they're talking about creating a bylaw where you can't use drugs in a playground. And it was quite interesting because like most of the conversation was against creating a bylaw. It was about ensuring people are not shunned for using drugs. And so, I had to talk and say, look, like somebody just got stabbed in a Starbucks because he told somebody to stop vaping next to their kid. He's dead. And so now we have this scenario in parks where it's just like somebody might be doing heroin next to the slide, and like what do? Do you leave the playground? Do you confront them? But you can't confront them because people don't know this, but there's actually a rule in British Columbia that's been given to police officers to not engage anyone that is using drugs.
As part
So they're not going to come and say, hey, don't use drugs. And they can't come because it's not illegal to use drugs. So it's created this thing where, and I'm not saying like people are using drugs in all the playgrounds, but it's a scenario that like, oh my goodness, like who's in charge here? So I got 2 5-year-olds in my life. Like Like, what am I supposed to do when I go to Moody Park and someone's using heroin next to the slide? Do I leave the park? Do I say something? So it's quite an interesting thing that, the person's comfort to use drugs has become the most important thing.
Right. But there's a bylaw for smoking cigarettes, right? Or vaping.
No, it's
Just
the
comments.
reason why those bylaws were created was to prevent secondhand smoke. And now they're saying secondhand smoke from a puff of crack or a puff of your fentanyl isn't as dangerous. So it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. It's smoking cigarettes and vaping vape sticks.
And then there's a gray area for
Gray area, very
what
gray
what
area.
was illicit drugs
Yeah.
now
Yeah. Very
decriminalized.
gray area. So it's quite interesting. And it's this isn't what British Columbia has adopted. It wasn't this Frankenstein version of decriminalization. Like, people really thought like there was going to be a path forward. If you're just a casual heroin user and you're doing great in life, then by all means, congratulations. Like, but for people that, like, if you're using drugs in a park next to kids, there's gotta, I don't care what you say, there's gotta be something that could get you to understand, like, that's probably not the best idea or best intention or best place to use. Maybe. Like, what would you do if somebody was shooting heroin?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a rare occasion. Like
Yeah, of course it's a rare occasion,
people
but
using
will it?
drugs.
It was a rare occasion to live in a tent on Hastings Street. It isn't anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I go down to the park down by my house, and there's guys always on the park bench pounding a 6-pack of beer.
Yeah,
Right? And it's just like they're not in the park; they're just off the path on
yeah.
a park bench, right? And it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, what if they were smoking crack? What if they were shooting heroin? I mean, it all sort of, some look worse than others, right?
Mhm.
Um, but you just think like people aren't going to smoke cigarettes in park. Drug addicts aren't going to walk into the middle of a park full of kids, sit down and use dope because they have this gray area now. Like, they're still going to act like addicts
Mhm.
and use in the bathroom or over by the tree where no, there's fewer people. It's, I don't know what the point of, like, does it need to have a bylaw, like, or does society need to be protected and the cops come if people are smoking cigarettes or heroin, or like what?
Well, the one thing is, if there is a bylaw, then you can actually call a bylaw officer. Like, there's a
Right.
signpost that you call the number. Like, right now, if you call the bylaw officer and say somebody's doing drugs in the park, they're not going to come because there's no bylaw to say that they can't do that.
Well, I come from the stance of, like, unless it's like imposing on my children's safety or my own safety, I'll just let bygones be bygones. You know what I mean? Or if I see someone feeling very uncomfortable, or someone's acting strange, and it's coming into around other people and their kids, um then yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to, well, I'm not going to be like, hey, my life is more important than your life, get out of here,
Yeah.
and like make them think that they're idiots. Like, I mean, it's how you treat a problem in this situation, man. It's how you confront it. Like,
The other good point that came up was like, or good point, maybe some might not think it's a good point, is why are they using there? Because that's where the benches are. So then they said maybe we need to create zones in parks where people can use substances and have benches and all that. And this is a known area where drug use is happening, and so forth. It's so is that what we're gonna have? Is like, these are the drug zones within a park, and where do you put that? Do you put it in the far corner? And well, that's stigmatizing. Why are they in the far corner? It was a really interesting dialogue. It's more than one person smoking dope at a park bench next to a slide. It's
well,
it's this conversation of, what is the purpose of a playground in a park, and it was really interesting. It was really the number one is the whole pilot project that they call it is a 3-year pilot project. For those of you that don't know, is doomed to begin with, because you can't meet the outcomes of the pilot project if you don't have things in place, such as referrals. Like you can't even say if it's a success, because they're not even making referrals. So how do they even know that this is helping, and so forth? So more will be revealed. There may be bylaws. I mean, each city is unique as well, so it's not like this standard across the province. And so this is happening in cities across Canada, across British Columbia. So if you want to get involved, find out who your cat team is, find out if your community has a cat community action team, find out what it is, and then call up your city councilors and have those conversations, and have them obviously respectful of everyone, because not only is the drug user not the most important person in the conversation, but also, like, I'm not the most important person in the conversation. It is a community. So where are we heading is the question that we need to ask ourselves. And after today's meeting, it was very clear that um, there's no need for bylaws. So I'm not too sure how that's going to end up, because obviously the city council needs to make those decisions, not CAT. But that's something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I think it all comes back to, like, if this, thing, this addiction or that addict that we don't want to stigmatize anymore, and we want to, like, let them be the addicts that they are, you know what I mean? And it's just like they're just trying to find a place to use. So who are we, to like push them out and say, get out of here? It all comes back down to, like you said at the beginning, there's no resources for that. There's nowhere for them to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so
and I remember being a kid
them,
drinking and using dope in a park. So I mean, I've done it.
Municipality. Well, exactly. So what is this? What is the solution? Is to have, yeah, like build a pub in each municipality where people can, safely inject and do all that, and let's see how that goes.
Yeah, see how it goes. It goes. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. Every Thursday, we come to you from our online, and one day we'll be back in the studio. But yeah, every Thursday, noon to 1, and powered by New West Recovery, Last Door in Westminster House. You can go to our YouTube, subscribe, and like, and Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. Go to talkrecoveryradio.com, and you'll be able to get all the links. And each week, we talk with recovery experts, addiction experts, authors, doctors, scientists, people with lived experience. And today we've got a great show ahead for you. And we've got Darren. Who are we talking recovery with today?
Yeah, we're talking recovery with Andy C. I want to welcome Andy C. to the show.
Andy, are you there? Well, he was there when we started the show.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
There you are. There you are.
I didn't realize I had to flip a switch.
No problem. Hey, Andy, how's it going?
Really well. And with you?
Awesome. Awesome. This is Darren.
Very good. Hello. Yes, welcome to the show, Andy C., who is an author. You've authored a few books here, it looks like. Now, I guess my thought or my question would be, would you have become an author had it not been for getting sober in 1977?
77.
No, I don't think so. That wouldn't have happened.
So, I mean, that's when I was born. So you're 46-ish years sober.
44. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I just want to, before we get into the books and how that came about, what was it like?
Big congratulations on that. Congratulations.
Oh yeah, absolutely. what was it like getting sober in 1977? I wonder if you could just paint a picture of, whether was it a 12-step call? Was it, those classic stories of getting a visit in the hospital or the detox? What was the first meeting like? What were the people's energy? If you could sort of recall your first introduction to AA.
Oh, I can recall it like it was yesterday. It was
Awesome.
maybe the defining moment of my certainly my adult life.
Right.
And I was in third year law school in Toronto, Ontario, and I knew that drinking was a problem, but it was an odd situation. I mean, my lived experience is that when I came into the program, things were good. I was in third year law school. I was treasurer
Right.
of the Law Society. I was doing well. I had good job offers, good prospects. I came from a great family, but every time I took a couple of drinks, it just went off the cliff. And I quickly identified, I'd identified years before, that none of my friends drank like I did. I remember thinking one day that I should pay a lot more for my beer than my friends. Because I got orders of magnitude more out of a beer than they could even think of. For them, it was just a nice thing. For me, it was a major event. But I had some great examples in my life. I had an uncle who was a major player in AA at the time, 12-step program. He became a recovery lion, if you will. He founded treatment centers throughout the United States. And I had a grandfather who helped bring Alcoholics Anonymous to Thunder Bay, where I was raised. So in my frame, AA was good. AA were the experts in drinking. I knew that.
Right.
And I knew that association with AA was not to be avoided, but in fact to be welcomed at some levels. So I went to my first meeting. And I didn't know the format, but I quickly figured it out. And they all, when it came to my turn, it was a small meeting in a Toronto church, and came to my turn. I said, well, my name's Andy and I'm here. And I said, that's all. And one of the old timers came up to me after the meeting and said, so what's with this? I'm here. And I explained to him just what I explained to you. I said, life is good, but I think I got this drinking problem. And he said, well, we have a test and you can take the test. And if you pass the test, you can come back. But if you don't pass the test, you're okay. I said, oh, I like tests. I do well. What's the test? And he said, go out and have a couple of drinks and stop abruptly. And don't have any more that day. Now, if you can do that several days in a row, you probably failed the test. You're not one of us. But if you're one of us, you're going to find that every time you do that, you're going to get drunk. I thought, okay, I'll take the test. So the first day I went out, took the test. And I remember thinking, I finished my second beer and I thought, today is not a good day for a test. Oh, I got drunk.
Yeah.
So a couple of days later, I went out and I had again a couple of drinks. And I remember as I was finishing my second beer, I thought, I kind of cheated the other day. It was a good day for a test. So I can start the test today. But 2, that's not much of a test. I'm going to have 4. I'll take the 2 from the other day and the 2 for today, and away we go. Well, I had 4 and I got drunk. Third time I went out and I just took enough money for a couple of drinks, finished them, came home, and it was wonderful. I thought, this is how men should drink. Got into bed. I was reading in bed, which is my custom. And I looked and I thought to myself, the only thing that would make this night even better, make it perfect, is a nightcap. And I looked up and there in the wall across the room, it was after midnight. I said, it's a new day. Well, I got absolutely drunk. I woke up the next morning. I said, you know what? The terms of reference of the test were pretty clear. If I couldn't take a couple of drinks and not get drunk, then I was if I couldn't do that, then I was not an alcoholic. If I passed that test, I was an alcoholic. I accepted the terms of reference of the test. I went back to my second meeting, and that was the magic meeting. It was big speaker meeting in Toronto.
Was that the one that you were able to say, I'm an alcoholic?
No, different meeting. The different meeting, and the first meeting was a little tiny meeting in the basement. This was a big speaker meeting.
Okay.
I went there and I went to the meeting. I heard this talk. It resonated very closely. And I got up for coffee and cake after the meeting, which they served. And this fellow came up to me and he said, "Hi, I'm Doug. You're new." I thought, what a perceptive guy. And he said, and he was a psychological genius because he played right to my ego. He said, "We've had a meeting and we talked about you and we decided that I'm your temporary sponsor." I thought, whoa, they had a meeting about me. This is wonderful. And I got a sponsor already. And we took off from there. He got me working the steps. I did my first 12-step call with him within 10 days of sobering up.
It's just amazing. And I don't know if AA would still send a newcomer out on that same test nowadays.
Well, I wouldn't send them out, but they if they work with me, they're going out, they're doing 12-step calls, RFN. And
right.
Bill Wilson did his first 12-step call within moments of getting sober.
Within
Dr.
moments,
Bob
exactly.
And Bill, but I remember I said to Doug, well, I said, "Doug, I'm only 10 days sober. What do I have to offer?" And he said, "Andy, for Christ's sake, you're 10 days more sober than he is."
Yeah.
And in his frame of reference, that's a lifetime. And then he went on further. And he said, besides, he'll hear me. I'm 15 years sober. He won't believe me. There's nothing I can say that will relate to him. He said, you, on the other hand, you've just sobered up. Him, he can relate to. 10 days, he can believe that.
Right.
So,
He can picture what that is. So back then, I hate the word back then, but I'm now 50, so back then works for me too sometimes. Was there as much negativity, with the world of social media now and everything, and everybody's creating their own blogs and their own write-ups? Like there's a lot of this is a treatment center that puts on this show, and we get people with an already idea of what 12 steps are because they've read it online. Is this new? Or was it even back then people say, don't do that? And was there as much negativity back then? Or is this all just within the last 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the time frame, but I can tell you the differences. The first big difference is the newcomers that were getting into the 12-step rooms. The biggest difference, when I came in, I didn't know anything. I didn't know the language. I had no idea. I was absolutely virgin, and my sponsor could shape me and mold me like a piece of clay on a potter's wheel. You look at the newcomers who are coming into the rooms now, it's completely different. They know the language, they've been studying it intensely. And in fact, many of them describe themselves as experts.
Oh, yeah.
and they
12 treatment centers.
Yeah. And you hear them at meetings and they'll say, well, I just got out of the treatment center and I have a lot to say about step 8. I haven't done it yet, but I got a lot to say.
Yeah.
And you want to, it's
who's sponsoring that guy?
Yeah, really. Well, we're going to start at 1. But so that's the first big change. The newcomers coming into the meeting know the language, they know the drill, and they at many levels think they know it all. They've lost that. When I came in, I was desperate. I knew that I had a drinking problem. I had GOD, the gift of desperation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when they come in, they're 30, 60 days sober. They know the language. They're not desperate. So that's the first big difference. The second more important difference is back in the 70s, we were and this was just losing its quality then, but still in the 70s, we were experimenting. Whatever worked to keep you sober, by God, you did it. The founders, they were drinking, there was sauerkraut juice and tomato juice and all these cockamamie things that we know cockamamie now, but they tried them. And they were, and from their perspective, everybody who ate sauerkraut juice stayed sober. So let's keep doing that thing. But we've lost that quality of experimentation. we've lost it. You go to meetings now and you go to a business meeting and you say, well, should we try this? Well, no, it's not conference approved. Should we try this? No, New York wouldn't approve. Should we try this? No, we don't do it. There's just these guys, these barriers to doing anything new. Makes me crazy. It really does.
Well, that's it. That's interesting. Because you would think after so many years, the reason for that is because the program honed its way into what works and and what doesn't. But you're hitting an interesting point that for like you say, for somebody that comes in green, like really with an unknowing or an ignorance to what goes on, that experimentation of try this. I mean, it's I don't know. It seems like we're missing that little component.
Yeah.
And
the case and the demonstration of the argument is in how we're dealing with newcomers from treatment centers. The most important element of 12-step AA rooms today, in my view, should be the program Bridging the Gap. We as alcoholics and involved in 12-step rooms, every one of us should have our name on a Bridge the Gap list, so that somebody coming out of a treatment center has got a person that they can call to take them to a meeting to show them how the meeting works.
Right.
But these programs they're not popular. They're not enthusiastic. They're not energized. And that's where we're losing. Shame on us, because our retention rate, if you will, the holding on to guys that come into the room, our retention rate is low. Our numbers in North America are low.
Right. I mean, this might bring the point of my next question. It's, you say you're still sponsored, you have sponsees, you're still involved. I don't know what it is, whether there's a mentality when you've, recovered, period. As if, we get a sense that there's no need. I've used the program up. I'm completely sober, clean. I'm out of that world. I've transcended out of my world, and now I can just carry on with life and kids and job. That I think a lot of people at that point just sort of fade off. What kept you involved? Like, what shifted from the gift of desperation? Like that, what replaced that?
Okay, good question. So I went through what I see today, in many cases. I sobered up and life got good. I graduated from law school. I had a great job and moved to Calgary. Life couldn't be better. What I benefited from was really solid sponsorship and a realization, a sense that there was more to this than just sobriety. So I went through a period of time, I call it my boredom phase, where I just got bored with life. Okay. And I kept going to meetings, but I had a sponsor who kept in touch with me, and life became increasingly difficult. And then he taught me a huge lesson, an enormous lesson. And this is really, I think, deals with your question. He showed me how the principles of the program can apply in life. So I had just a brief story. At a work situation, we were butting heads like this, just God damn, and I was an angry, power-driven alcoholic without his medication, succeeding beyond my wildest dreams. But this was a difficult one. So I called my new sponsor in Calgary, Frank, and I said, explain the situation. And he said, it was terrifying. He said, I've only been as angry as you are once in my life. And the solution hurts so much. I never let myself get that angry again. I thought, oh, Lord, I could only imagine what the solution included. And perhaps testicular removal. I didn't know what it was. I said, what is it? And he said, you have to talk to God about this guy every morning. You have to just talk, you get on your knees and you talk with God about this guy and be honest with him. There's no use wasting his time.
Right.
And just talk with him. And I said, that's it? And he said, trust me, that's it. And I did that. And the first morning, I remember my prayer, I followed Frank. I said, God, I'm here for the first time on my knees. I'm not even sure if you're there, but we're here. Let's talk. This guy is an asshole. It's said that you have made no mistakes. I think with him, you made a big mistake. You should do everyone a favor and just move him off the mortal coil. There was not, and I said, I'm not going to bullshit. I want nothing good for this guy, except I want him out of my life.
Fair enough.
And I was honest. And now I said that every morning, variations of that. And about a week later, I listened to myself and I thought, and I heard myself saying, I still think he's a jerk. I still think you made a mistake. But if something good has to happen to him for your universe to unfold, I'm okay with that. And then about a week later, 2 weeks into the program, I found myself saying, he's still an asshole. I want nothing to do with him, but I ask for a blessing upon him. And I don't know even where that language came from. But the key was he showed me that when I practiced these principles of the program in my life changed. Because not only did my attitudes change, this guy, we stopped butting heads. We never did business together again, which was incredible in its own way.
It's one of the biggest gifts too, when you realize that this isn't just about your alcohol use or your drug use. It's all areas of your life: relationships, coworkers, employment, government, taxes. It's you just get to understand how your role is in all people, places, things. It's the best conundrum. People come to these fellowships thinking it's about whether it's debt, if it's alcohol, or if it's drugs, and then you realize a couple months in, it's like, oh, it's about everything.
You only realize that if you apply it.
Yeah, definitely.
Frank could not have explained what was going to happen, nor did he try.
So quick question for you. Since you've got lots of years of wisdom and from hearing you, definitely lots of knowledge about 12 steps. Big argument out there: treatment industry's been bad for recovery outcomes from 12-step fellowships. Thoughts on that? I know that's a language narrative that's out there.
Yeah, I don't share in that.
Yeah.
What I do share is in our ability in the rooms of AA to receive people from treatment center and bring them forward and teach them this new way of life. That's the failure. The failure is not in the treatment centers and what they're doing. The failure is in how we welcome and embrace the newcomer.
Yeah.
So
and you can be a newcomer for a long time. Those of us that are just joining us are listening to Talk Recovery Radio, 100.5 FM. And we've got a great guest who is an author of several books, and I've got some copies of them right here. I think they go in order, so let me just put them. Second one. Okay, so we got Meditations.
Yeah, gems and more gems.
Oh,
and actually my third in that series, Still More Gems, has just come out. There it is. You have the copy.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, we got Still More Gems as well. So, and then so we'll talk about those three, and then we'll talk about closing arguments. Okay. So let's talk about the gems.
Yeah.
Gems, more gems, and still more gems. Yeah. So they're meditation books, so people will read them to be inspired.
Yeah, I call them, they are not meditation books, they're meditations on.
Sorry about that.
What they are is shares. The genesis of the books was I take notes at meetings. I have a little notepad.
Really?
And I just, because you hear good things. Well, if I don't write them down, I forget them. I'll forget them before the meeting's over.
That's so funny you say that, because sometimes I'm in a meeting and I hear someone like, I'm going to save that. I'm going to share that at my cake. And then I forget. So you write it down.
So just a point form. And I've been doing it for a long time. I mean, I was a lawyer and a commercial lawyer. So I took notes for everything. It was a habit. It was just absolute habit. And like the note actually from my meeting last night, this is my note. And the guy talked about the 5 A's, and he's a slave to the 5 A's. The 5 A's he wants people's affection, attention, admiration, applause, and approbation. I thought that's brilliant.
Never heard that.
Yeah, I hadn't either. But I
Wow.
wrote it down. So now everybody's heard it because I wrote it down. So one day, my sponsor back in Calgary, Jeff, he said, we were walking out of a meeting. He said, what do you do with these notes? I said, well, actually, over breakfast the next morning, I have the note and I remember the meeting from the night before. And they're just reminders of the wisdom that I heard. And I get to think about it all over again. And he said, that's a great idea. He said, you should take those thoughts and just expand them and then send them out to your sponsees. Oh, okay, well, I can do that. So I started, I shared these little thoughts through an email list with my sponsees. Well, one of my sponsees, we've been doing this for a couple of years, he said, these are really good. You should set up a blog. You should send these out in a blog. And I thought, okay, well, I took the next step. And I got into a weekly habit. I'd pick what I thought was the best one of the week, and I'd develop it into a little 300-400 word blog. And then another sponsee who had been getting the blogs for a couple of years said, if you gathered all these up, they'd make a great book. Okay. And that's how the book evolved. And that was the original Gems. And then so I do a blog every week. It's on a website called the fourth, and it's number 4, thefourthdimension.ca. And I've forgotten how many I've got to send out now. My assistant still sends me the lists of recipients and all that metric stuff. But every week, every Thursday, there's a new blog that comes out. Today, she'll put out another blog. And now when I get about 60 or 70 of them, I polish them to within an inch of their lives and turn them into a book. So there's three volumes of these weekly blogs, which are shares, thoughts, comments, observations.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of my ego side. If I ever sat in a meeting with you and shared, flipping through your book, wondering if I'm quoted in there.
Well, trust me, your share you might be able to recognize it, but by the time you're through the 30-second edit,
Right.
It's not really all that clear. But
Right.
there's and some of them are just stories that I picked up, like one I shared just recently is one of the blogs. It's in the Gems about the pastor of a church. And he organized a seminar for women, for wives, to improve their marriage. They're good marriages, just how to make them better. And he said, how many of you have told your husband, tell your husband, I love you and I need you in my life? When was the last time you said that? And he went through the room, and some said, well, I don't remember, but I'm sure it was yesterday or today. I say that all the time, that I can't remember the last time, but it was maybe this morning, all through the room. And he said, okay, take out your cell phones. They all took out their cell phones. He said, now text your husband. Text your husband. I love you and I need you in my life. Oh, we lost
Darren. Yeah.
I love you.
We'll keep you held log back in.
Yeah, I love you and I need you in my life. So they all texted, sent. He said, good. Now exchange your phones. Pass your phone to your neighbor. And he said now read out the messages and replies that you get.
Ooh.
And the first reply was, who is this? And another reply was, what have you done now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then my favorite was, I thought we agreed you wouldn't drink during the day.
Oh no.
But the lesson, so that was a good story, but the lesson is, how's my relationship with my higher power? If I was to send my higher power a text and say, tick, 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 I love you and I need you in my life, what would the reply look like? If I texted that and then passed the phone to you, Giuseppe, what would you read? You might read, who is this?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good. So if you're listening or watching right now, that's a really good right now, go on your phone and send that either to your partner, to your sponsor, or to your parent. I experienced something like that with family. Just when's the last time I
Well,
told my mom that, because the reality was, like, I don't even remember the last time I
and you,
told. I mean,
it's,
coming
and
into like recover early, I was also strained. So it was one of those things where that keypad was like difficult to write the words.
no,
Now I could say I love you, no problem. You know what I mean? But there's a moment in time where it was kind of uncomfortable.
but we can also practice it with our higher power.
Welcome back, Darren.
I don't know. I just got disconnected there. It's never happened before.
But we can say that to our higher power. I love you and I need you in my life.
Yeah.
And we should say it frequently enough that he's not surprised.
That's a good one. So if you're listening, that's a good thing. So if you think your response from the other opposite person is they'll be surprised, then you got some work to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hopefully I don't go off topic here, because I was thinking about, like sending that text and realizing and taking an inventory that, wow, it's been a while since I've said that.
Yeah.
That, especially going to meetings, and there's an obligation to carry a message of hope and, sound as if my life is all full of solutions, that I hear myself speaking positively quite often, and then realize that I don't have that same narrative in my home, with my kids, with my wife. I'm not just so optimistic or positive or solution oriented, because I'm in my drama, I'm in my life, and that's my work that I have to do. And then I may take the changes I made from that drama and share the solution at a meeting, but realize that it's been a while since I've said, hey, I appreciate you. I need you in this life, and I appreciate you. It's an interesting point.
There's
Gems that we don't say.
Yeah. One of the other blogs that I remember most of them, there've been some good ones. One of the other good ones that I like is it came from a share at a meeting. The guy said, I can always tell the speakers or guys who are sharing at meetings who don't have sponsors or aren't in touch with their sponsor, because they use the meeting as their sponsor. Well, that evolved into a great blog, because and you can see that. You see that in 12-step meetings. The guys who are not in touch with their sponsor or don't have a sponsor, they use the meeting as their sponsor. They talk through all of their life problems and issues. But the guys who are sponsored and well-sponsored, they come on not just talking about the problems, they talk about the problems, then the solution.
Right.
Or sometimes never the solution, and you're like,
Yeah. It's just so many meetings, they dwell. It's like the drunkalogs in the shares. We don't need to hear the problems unless they're connected with a solution.
That's right. Which, it doesn't mean your life is incongruent, because you're bringing a positive message of solution, to some problems that have been going on in your life.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. That's what we need to hear from anybody carrying a message, is that there's a solution to whatever it is any of us are going through.
And
that isn't drinking.
Yeah, and guys in the room, they need to hear, even from old timers like the three of us, they need to hear that life sometimes have rough spots.
Absolutely.
But we've got a program that helps us, and we got a fellowship that can help us. But that's the story of the gems.
This is great. I love this concept. I love the idea, and it's just, gives an opportunity for somebody to experience, your recovery journey too.
Yeah.
And it's just like what you've been through over the years is now in these books. So what a great legacy to leave for people.
But the other one, the fourth book, is I think that it's
so tell us what's going on here.
Closing arguments for 12-stepping lawyers. There is a group called the International Lawyers in AA, and we have an online meeting every week, and I participate in that. And at one point they said, "Would you help us? Would you take a responsibility in the meeting and close the meeting?" So I said, "Sure." And now their standard close was they read the 9th step promises and closed with the Lord's Prayer. Okay, I did that for a while, but I got bored with that. So I said, I
My
think we could,
apology.
no, I said, I think we can do better than this. You know, we're all lawyers, we're well educated, well read. I said, here's what I propose. Instead of just reading the 9th step promises, every week, I'm going to take one clause from the 9th step contract and analyze it as if I was analyzing a contract.
Mm.
Because when you look at the 9th step promises, it says, if you do this, if you're painstaking about this, this is what you're going to get. Well, that's just like a contract. You know, if a services contract says, if you do this to this standard, I'm going to pay you, I'll give you an office, you know, it's a contract. So I said, let's analyze it like a contract. So clause by clause analysis, applying legal principles and legal, not the language, because I've got a lot of people who are not lawyers who've read it, and they said, whoa, this is kind of cool. But it is a detailed legalistic analysis of the 9th step contract. And they said, whoa, that was great. Keep it up. So I said, okay, I'm going to do the same with the Lord's Prayer. So it's a clause by clause analysis of the Lord's Prayer. And they said, well, that's even better. Keep it up, keep it up. So I went through next, and every time there was a prayer in the big book, I applied it as if it were a contract. And there's some interesting insights that it was really shocking for me. I was amazed. Like the 3rd step prayer, I offer myself to thee. Now that's legal language. For a contract to be made, there's an offer and an acceptance, but then lawyers know you have the offer, the acceptance, but it's not sufficient that you just accept it in your head. You have to communicate the acceptance back to you. So Giuseppe, I offer to sell you this pen for $10. And you say to yourself, I'll take that offer. Well, it doesn't do any damn good. It doesn't work until you communicate back to me, I accept your offer and I'll take the pen for $10. So I said, so I offer myself to thee, God. That's an offer. And now presumably God accepts. I said, well, how do I know that he's accepted it? Because that's the condition of a contract. And I realized how he does it. He doesn't write on the wall. He doesn't send me a memo. He doesn't execute the contract. What he does, and it's a legal principle, I can accept the contract by course of dealing, by my conduct, by what I do next. So Giuseppe, I'll sell you the pen for $10. Giuseppe accepts that, and then he reaches. He says, I'll take it. That's the course of conduct. Without saying a word, he just takes the pen, fine. He's now established the contract. He took the pen, he owes me $10. God works the same way in my life. I offer myself to him, he accepts, and now it's the course of dealing. It's how he relates to me that it proves the acceptance of the contract. So little essays like that is the closing arguments for 12-stepping lawyers.
It's that's brilliant. I mean, Darren has talked about you make this constitution with yourself as well. Like, what is it that you're, making an agreement to do it? And that's you got to make that decision, right? This is what you might very interesting sponsor, eh, Darren?
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't know if I want you to go through my step work, actually.
Yeah, finding the loopholes in the clause.
Exactly. Oh boy, that would be an interesting conversation. So if you're in recovery, if you want to learn about recovery, you can take a look at the website. It's called the Fourth Dimension. Yeah, there it is. Perfect. So the fourth dimension.ca. So it's the number 4. You got all your blogs there. You can get your books there. Lots of information and so forth. So if you're in a meeting and Andy's sitting next to you with a notepad, you might be featured in his upcoming book that's going to come out next. Anybody ever get mad at you? Traditions, all that kind of stuff. What do you say about that? Because so many people write blogs in recovery. When we started this radio show and we would even mention the word 12 steps, we would get like social warriors like anonymity, and all that kind of stuff. What do you say
Yeah,
about that?
yeah. In all the years I've been doing it, I've had one person object.
Oh, wow. One. You're
Had
lucky.
one. And all she said was, I feel nervous with you writing stuff down. I said, okay, fine. I put it in my pocket. That was it.
There you go. There you go.
But so in all my years, I've never had anyone push back. But go ahead.
Are we supposed to be invisible though?
No,
I would love
no.
to hear your idea of anonymity.
Yeah,
So, for example, this is Recovery Day. We host it in
Yeah.
our neighborhood, and it's a day of recovery. It's not an AA event, but obviously there's lots of people in recovery there. A lot of people, and there's actually people that think this is a bad thing. Like we're supposed to be anonymous.
yeah.
What do you think? What's your lawyer closing argument on anonymity? I'd love to hear it.
Well, first of all, the short form is bullshit.
Okay.
Excuse me, French. We've carried, and this goes back to the idea of experimentation. We got locked into these ideas that no, we can't ever use our last name. Well, if I'm speaking at a rally, I introduce myself. I'm Andy, and I'm an alcoholic. But if you ever need me, my last name is Crooks. Imagine going to the hospital. You're in the hospital, Giuseppe, and I go to the information desk at the hospital, and I'm looking for Giuseppe. He goes to Monday night. I'm sure you
Who's
know.
that? Yeah.
We're not a secret society. We're an anonymous society. And the prohibitions against public displays of anonymity, there's a very specific historical chain that you can see. Initially, anonymity was important because they were worried they were going to get swamped. We'll just never be able to handle all the people who come to us. The next phase of anonymity was a bunch of guys, starting with a baseball catcher. I think he played for Detroit. He was a major league baseball player. Rowley was his name. And he sobered up, came to meetings, and he came out. And he said, I'm doing everybody a favor. I'm advertising AA. I'm notorious. This will be great. He got drunk. The same thing happened to Charles Taylor, a major author. Same thing happened to person after person after person. Every time they stood up and said, I'm an alcoholic and I'm famous and you should come to AA too, they all got drunk. The third and final phase of anonymity came with Bob. Dr. Bob wrote an essay on anonymity. And he said it's an important part of the practical fellowship. People can come to us and know they won't be outed.
Right.
But there's a spiritual value to anonymity. The spiritual value is that at the end of the day, we lose our sense of self and our attachment to self, and we are anonymous to self. And that's where we talk about anonymity is the spiritual foundation of our program. It's not the practical program. Anonymity is a spiritual value, and it comes from this essay by Dr. Bob. Wow. We are anonymous to ourselves. But if we hide, I know we're running close to the wire, but years ago, I was very active in politics, and a politician whom I knew in passing ran into the communications buzzsaw. Terrible situation. So I phoned him up and I left a voice because it was one of these situations where he's not accepting any calls. Everything's going straight to voicemail. So I said, this is a friendly call. This is one of the few friendly calls you're going to get today. I said, I've been where you are. I can help. Let's get together for coffee. And a couple of days later, he phoned. He said, geez, it's good to get your message. Thanks. I needed that. Let's get together for coffee. So we got together for coffee, and I organized a couple of other politicians, and the four of us had coffee. And we were talking about political life, constituents and difficulties. And I made a joke. I said, well, as some of you may know, I'm deeply involved with Alcoholics Anonymous. And we have this thing called sponsor and sponsee. And sponsors get sponsee phone calls, and there are a lot like constituents phone calls. They're always complaining and whining and yada, yada, yada. I said, in AA, we have an aha button. It's a button that sits on your desk, and when you hit it, it says, and you hit it again, it says, So we just sit there and we keep pressing the button. You can go on with the rest of your life, just keep, and they all thought it was hilarious. They said, yeah, well, let it get us in touch with central office in AA, because every politician could use an aha button. So my friend and I walked out to his truck after the coffee. We got to his truck and he turned and he said, can we be serious for a minute? And I said, sure. He said, I think I've got a drinking problem. We went for lunch the next day. I mean, now he's active. He starts meetings. He sponsors guys. He did have a drinking problem and he needed us. None of that would have happened if I hadn't made that jocular story about my role in AA. And that it's happened time and time again.
Yeah.
Now, I've been around for 40 years. You know, like a lot of guys in downtown Calgary know that I'm in AA. That's not a big issue. So
it's a free choice that's given in the program. You want to share it to the world, by all means, that's your choice. But we have to protect the new people coming in, make them feel safe, make them feel like nobody's going to go outside and tell your story, and nobody's going to go, make a phone call to your parents. Like there is a spiritual foundation. I understand that, but how that sort of fades into freedom of personal choice. And like you say, if the purpose is to, as you walk down the street, be able to invite people into, a solution that you found. I mean, how does it get any more spiritual than that?
Our purpose is to be attractive.
Right.
We're the lighthouse, we're the beacon on the hill.
Okay.
And and if we're failing at that, then we're not doing our job.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty. I like that.
Beauty. Yes, amazing. Well, thank you very much for all of this conversation. It's been wonderful. So, like I said, if you would like to get your 3 copies of Gems, More Gems, and Still More Gems, it's you can experience Andy's experience in his highlight moments of going to meetings and meditations and addiction and recovery pieces. So it's wonderful. 12-step shares, notes, and thoughts. So that's great. And then Closing Arguments is his other book that he has, which is for 12-stepping lawyers. I thought I was a lawyer when I showed up to meetings, but these are real lawyers, not the ones that got their degree in detox.
The jailhouse
Yeah,
lawyer.
exactly. Yeah, it was so bizarre. You're talking to a guy that was going to sue Narcotics Anonymous when I came back, and I had it all ready to go. Let me tell you, Andy, it was ready to go. It was just so we all got crazy stories. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio, 9 years of shows, hundreds of guests, thousands of listeners. You can replay us, talkrecoveryradio.com, on all your favorite streaming devices. Shout out to Vancouver Co-op Radio for giving us an hour each week on 100.5 FM. And shout out to Jordan, who books the shows. If you want to be on our show, got ideas for the show, jordan@lastdoor.org. Andy, wonderful to see you again. Wonderful to have you on the show. And you can visit his website, thefourthdimension.ca, and that's with the number 4. And you can go there and keep following Andy's work. Thank you so much, Andy. Have a great day.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. Okay, bye, everyone. See you next Thursday.